Actually, I have here an item that you all might be interested in. I don't know where to start the bidding exactly. Inside, there's a picture that Baba gave me in 1962, signed by Baba. But you don't get that. You get this lovely case that contained the picture that Baba gave to me. And just check it out, you see? And I'll throw in this other picture over here, which has been touched by no one in particular. But I got this actually in Myrtle Beach, and it's quite tacky. But if you've shopped in Myrtle Beach, this is typical, you know. But it serves the purpose, and you can think about your bids as I talk. I've thought of so many things I could auction off. You'd have a permanent center in a day if I cleaned out my closet. I'm going to talk about growing up, which is something I haven't managed to do yet. So, but it's something we're all trying to do, I guess. And I want to begin by saying that one of the very first things that Baba said to me when I saw him, at least as I remember it, when I walked in to see Baba for the first time, I was 8 years old, of course, and most of you know that story, so I won't tell that now, but one part of that relates to what we're talking about today is that as I walked in the door, I remember Baba looking at me and saying, and I have to say that what this means is that for me, the memory of Baba being silent, not speaking, was really on reflection. It wasn't my immediate impression of Baba that he didn't speak, although I suppose on some level I knew it at that moment, that it didn't occur to me to think about it. And nor did it seem strange. Anything about him seemed strange. He looked much like he looks in this picture here. He had his pink jacket on, perhaps just a little older, because this was 1958, and this seems a little bit earlier. But I walked into the lagoon cabin, which most of you have seen, and one of the first things he said to me is he looked at me and he said, how you've grown. Because that's what I heard Baba say. How you've grown. And then I ran into Baba's arms, and the rest is history, as they say. But it didn't strike me until sometime later that that's kind of an odd thing to say to the person you meet them for the first time. And thinking about that over the years, it's deeply touched me. Baba would say that, or at least that's what I would hear from Baba when I first saw him, first time I saw him. And so this thing of growing is so extremely important in our lives with Baba. We don't want to stand still. Even if we did want to stand still, we couldn't. I don't think, and someone can correct me later if I'm wrong about this, but I don't know of anyone who loves Baba over a period of time who stands still. We keep growing and changing. In that sense, you see, this fresh outpouring of love that the Avatar has brought into our midst, one can't stand still. You have to keep moving. And there's no vacation from it. It's constant, as you know. Life with Baba is constant motion in a way, though there is rest in the motion. And that's something what I want to talk about today. But the first thing I want to say about all this is really the most important thing, and then the rest you can just listen to or not. But the most important thing, and the thing that will sort of relieve all of our minds as we talk about this topic, because growth is a little scary. I mean, people talk about growth, then we all start thinking about how much we've grown as opposed to how much someone else has grown, and what does it mean to grow. And I haven't gone very far. It's been 10 years, and I'm still the same person and all this. So it's a scary topic for people. It is for me. But the first and most important thing to say, I think, is that holding on to Baba is all that counts, finally. It's really holding on that counts. Because if we hold on to Baba, this is my own understanding of it, but I feel if we hold on to Baba, we're going to grow, whether we know it or not. We're going to change. We're going to deepen our relationship with God. We're going to become more self-realized. Whatever way you like to put it and think about it, that's going to happen simply by holding on to Baba. So that should relieve all of us right away. And I don't think I'm making that up or exaggerating that point. I think it's extremely important. And I think it's from Baba himself. You see, I remember Baba saying in 1962, he took his daaman in his hands. And I remember Baba holding it in his hands like this and looking at us and saying, the most important thing, Baba says, is to hold on to my daaman. Hold on. Baba said it may seem natural to let go or slip away, but hold on. That's what you must remember, hold on. And, a lot of the discussion in 62, I wasn't paying much attention because I was watching Baba. And I was 13, and so it was more interesting to me to watch Baba. And I missed some of the discourse and discussion. But this I heard and I saw, because I was sitting next to Baba's knee right here, and it was in my face. You see, that he did this right in my face like that. And I didn't miss this. He said to hold on. And he said at that time, he said, you see, I don't want you to hold on. Just hold on with one hand. He said, hold on with both hands. Hold on with both hands. He said, you see, then if one happens to slip away, you'll still be holding on. So remember that. And over the years, I've kept that image in front of me because if, in fact, we hold on with both hands, which I think means simply wholeheartedly try to hold on to Baba. If we really hold on, then with both hands, then we have no hands free to grasp anything else. And Baba, being wonderfully wise and clever, you see, if he gets us focused on the task of holding on to him, even though it's he who holds on to us, but if he gets us focused on the task of holding on to him, what else is there to do? We have nothing free to do, or no hands. We're occupied. And we're absolutely going to grow in his love. So having said that, you see, then what else is there? Well, at this point, for me, and this may not be everyone's experience, but my experience at this point is you can hold on, good, but are you going to go grow and work and live with Baba happily? Or are you going to kick and scream, fight? Holding on, but not so happy about it. And for me, this has been something that Baba keeps pushing back into my mind. Yeah, how are you going to live with me now? You're going to live with me. That's a given, as long as you hold on to me. As long as you say, Baba, take my life. Baba will work on the ego. Baba will bring up what he needs to bring up. There's no doubt about that. But the question is, how are we going to participate in it? Is it going to be happy life, fulfilled life, or is it going to be a life where we are always struggling and suffering and feeling that it's all so difficult and so forth? At least that's the choice I have always seen in my life. I don't think that I've ever had a choice of what school to go to, what job to take, whether to live in Virginia or Myrtle Beach or wherever. I really don't think I've ever had those choices. But I think I've had the choice of whether to be happy in the life that's there for me with Baba or not to be. That's the great choice I think I have. I feel I have. As long as I feel I have that choice, I guess I do. Whether I ultimately do is irrelevant. I feel that's the choice. And so the question then to me is how to choose to be happy with Baba. What does it mean? Well, it's something very deep, and it requires an understanding as well as a heart connection. Understanding, Baba says, does have a place. It is important to try to understand, because that helps the heart, because it kind of quiets the mind. If you have some understanding, it's good. But always remembering that finally understanding doesn't have meaning. It has its place, but it doesn't have meaning. Baba says love has meaning. Obedience has more meaning. Holding on to my daaman has most meaning. That's from Baba. So, meaning comes with holding on, and obedience and love, but understanding leads to helps and supports these others. So the conviction, you see, that Baba is doing his job is extremely important if we're going to choose to be happy with Baba, I feel, and to grow with Baba, willingly, openly, and happily. So it's important to develop that conviction. One thing that helps me in this problem of conviction is to understand Baba's task and to understand our task. It just helps me to clear things up. I alluded to this yesterday. But for me, Baba's task is elimination of the ego. It's his job, not my job. I find this is one of the most difficult and perhaps misunderstood things Baba has given. Maybe it's just because I've misunderstood it so long. But why is it that we always want to do his job? Why is it that we want to eliminate our ego, become spiritual? When it is, first and foremost, Meher Baba's job to eliminate the ego. It's what he's come to do. If we clearly understand that as his task, then we have to then ask, well, what do we do? And Baba answers us. Your job, your whole life's work is to remember me. That's all. You remember me, and I'll eliminate your ego. Remember me with love. Remember me in your heart. Remember me wholeheartedly with love. That's your job. Now, it's not so easy. But his job isn't easy either. Look at our ego. So, but at least he can do his job, and I think we can do ours also. The two obviously are finally, at the deepest level, one and the same. But at least in terms of our trying to do it and understand it, that's how I begin to think about Baba and myself and how we're working together on this spiritual path, this journey we're on. Well, remembrance is then growth for me. There's so much more you can say about growth, but today when I talk about growth, I'm largely going to be talking about remembrance, not as though it's the only way to talk about it or the best way, but it's one way to talk about it, and it's one I've been thinking about. So, given that proviso, what do I mean by remembrance, and more importantly, what does Baba mean by remembrance? Well, I read recently something Rumi said about remembrance that I'd like to share with you. He said, "Never be without remembrance of God, for his remembrance provides the bird of the spirit with strength, feathers, and wings. If your goal becomes actualized completely, that is light upon light. But in any case, through the remembrance of God, your inward journey will be illuminated, and you will achieve a degree of detachment from the world. For instance, look at the bird that wants to fly in heaven. Though it cannot reach heaven, moment by moment it soars farther from earth and higher than the other birds. Or consider a small box of musk. I like this one very much. Consider a small box of musk whose opening is narrow. You put your hand into it, but you cannot bring out the musk. Yet your hand becomes perfumed and your senses refreshed. So too is the remembrance of God. Even if you do not reach His essence, yet His remembrance has numerous effects upon you. You actualize tremendous benefits by invoking Him. So, remembrance is first and foremost a waking up of the self. It's waking Baba up and keeping him awake. And the perfume released from that remembrance transforms your life and all around you. And it is essential for the journey to keep awake. Baba has come to awaken us to the truth that we must keep him awake in our hearts if we are to grow in his love. This, of course, is a two-way dialogue, this remembrance. It's not just one way. It goes both ways between you and Baba. And we remember Baba, but Baba also remembers us. I suppose this first came home to me most clearly after Baba left in 1958. In 1958, Baba stayed in Myrtle Beach, as you know, for a short time. And then we all fell in love, and then he left. It's very difficult, to be with him. It was for me, and to love him, and to enjoy so much being around him, and then he left. A child especially, I think, maybe others felt it in different ways, but for me it was very painful because he wasn't there, and he was in India. And after all, you see, after he left, I found out who people thought he was. I don't know who I thought he was when he was there, but for me he was Baba, and he was everything. He was very familiar to me, and I loved him. And I felt that he loved me. He was so sweet to me. He teased me. He patted me. He embraced me. He thought of me. As I would go from one place to another, I'd get a hug or a glance or a pat. Well, only one time that didn't happen, actually. He got out of the car. He went into the lagoon cabin, started in the lagoon cabin, and he passed right by. And so shocked was I that he passed by me without noticing that I reached out and yanked on his sadra. It was really spontaneous. I didn't think about it. I was just so taken aback. I reacted. And Baba looked down, and he smiled, and he took me up into his arms like that. And at that moment, Mother snapped a picture, I'm glad to say. So I have that moment preserved. And, my mother is not very mechanical. She had a new camera, and she took 20-some pictures. That's the only one that came out. To my great blessing, it was the only one. So you see, one time I had to remind him to remember me, but the rest of the time he remembered himself. And then he left. I thought, well, now they say, he's the Christ, and that's wonderful, but he doesn't remember me. If he is all that, now he's away in India and he's doing all these things, he doesn't remember me. This is, of course, how a child, it's important to be remembered. And I used to wander around in the woods of the center after Baba left, wondering if he remembered me. And I would think about him. I wrote little poems, terrible little poems, but anyway, I wrote them. And wondered, you see, does he remember me? Does he think of me? And just as that was reaching its height, I was beginning to feel very sad and lonely and lost. I suppose it's like being in love and being separated, but for a child it's something even deeper in a way, because it's like your family's gone or whatever. I don't know, it was a sense of loss. Just as I was feeling that, a letter came from India. And I don't think I've ever told this before, but it relates to this. So, a letter came from Mani to Elizabeth and Kitty. And I don't remember what the rest of the letter said. But in the middle of the letter, Mani said, "We have been enjoying the films taken of Baba's visit in 1950, to the May visit that someone sent over these films. We've been enjoying these films. Baba showed them to the women, to the girls. And as he showed them, Mani said, each time the little white head of Charles would come on the film, Baba would lean forward and say, yeah, there he is. And also Wendy too. There she is, like that. And when I read that, when I saw that, Elizabeth showed it to me. She didn't say anything, she just showed it to me. Then I knew that he was remembering me, and that he would always remember me. That's all it took. Because from then on, I had that conviction that Baba would remember me, that he loved me. He really loved me, and he would remember me. And truly speaking, you know, over all the years, today I feel, Baba remembers his lovers. He remembers us. He's awake, he's alive, and he remembers us. And our remembrance of him deepens our awareness of his remembrance of us, which is constant, which is always there. It's just that it's we who forget to remember him. So how can we draw on that wonderful reservoir of love and remembrance that's there? It isn't as though Baba has forgotten us. It's we've forgotten to remember him. So remembrance is, first of all, it seems to me, that waking up of Baba and then discovering he is awake and remembering us. And it's a dialogue. I learned from that experience in 58 that life with Baba is a dialogue between the lover and the beloved. It's two-way. One has to speak with Baba, be in conversation with him, in order to hear him. And in any good conversation, one has to listen as well as speak. Depth psychologists, of course, call this the ego-self dialogue. But how much richer it is when it's known as the lover-beloved dialogue. It's a similar dynamic, but much more real and beautiful if you're in love with your true self. And you can see it and know it and experience it as you can with Baba. That's the gift that Baba's given to the world, that we can be in dialogue with who we really are. And remembrance begins the dialogue. It's important to do that. I suppose thirdly, as I was beginning to talk about last night, remembrance does bring everything up to the surface. This is probably the part we all know very well. I think sometimes I've had the misconception in my life with Baba that by remembering Baba somehow I would be able to forget everything else. Remembrance with Baba, though, brings everything up. You're asking for Baba to bring everything up by thinking about him. But you see, in thinking about him, truly in the heart, with love, thinking about Baba, then when everything comes up, it can be dealt with more objectively, more detached way. That's his dynamic that he wants us to learn. Nevertheless, it comes up. and out. It has to, at least in my experience. Nothing can remain hidden, finally, with Baba. Nothing. It all has to come up. And people think, sometimes I've thought in my life, well, I've given this to Baba, or I've given that to Baba. Now, why do I still have the problem? Why is it still difficult? Why is it still painful? I've given it to Baba. Well, the real question there is, you see, if one gives it to Baba, then what you're saying to Baba is, I'm ready to work on it. Bring it back. Let's work on it. Let's get rid of it. It's not, as Baba says, a path of roses or peace or whatever. It's work. It's hard. And if we give over to Baba these things, then we should expect that it now needs to be worked out. If we've given it to Baba, why not work it out? It's not ours anymore. We've given it to Him. But it has to be worked out. Sometimes quickly, sometimes over a long period, sometimes humorously, sometimes very painfully. But it has to be worked out. Always with love. Because love means working this out. That's what it means. I quoted Rumi yesterday. I'm going to repeat this line because it's a good one for this. Remembrance, Rumi says, is the noose of union with the beloved. Remembrance is the noose of union with the beloved. It means noose like this. Be silent, for madness has begun to boil. So, remembrance is giving it to Baba, yeah. Remembrance is living in Baba, but it's also the beginning of our work, our labor. And what a joyful labor it is. Because in our labor to work out all of this stuff that isn't really us, in our labor, we are getting rid of a lot of this for the last time. Convinced. Why? Because we're with Him now. Now and forever. It's over, in a sense. It's the beginning of the end. See? So, it's not just that these things are coming up again, the same old things. It's now, let's see, Baba's doing it for the last time. It's a wonderful thing. So it should be joyful. It's a joyful thing that it's coming up and out, and we're working on it, because it's finished. We will now be with Baba forever. Realize what that means? I can't grasp it exactly, but somewhere in my heart I know what that means. It means we're free. Oh, sure, we may have X many more lifetimes, but we'll always be with Baba. Whether it's 10, 100, 1,000 lives, it'll be with Baba. And then what difference does it make? The more the merrier, as far as I'm concerned. If I can be with Him, it's all right. But you see, these things where you do the same things over and over again, we're all tired of that. That's why we're here in this room. Because we're tired of that. That's why we have the heart to remember Him, is because we're tired of forgetting. And now we're free. You see? So it should be joyful from now on. So what this lifetime is this or that? You know, it's all wonderful from now on. I mean, it's compared to other people, it looks hard, but it's nothing compared to doing it over and over and over again. And we all know that deep inside because we've all done it. And we're tired. You see, remembrance is our relief. So, remembrance is rest and work at the same time. It's freedom and movement at the same time. A medieval mystic puts it more beautifully than I could ever possibly express. Jan van Rysbroek. He says, in one single moment and at the same time, love labors and rests in the beloved. And the one is strengthened by the other. For the loftier the love, the greater is the rest. And the greater is the rest, the closer is the love. for the one lives in the other. I love that first line. In one single moment and at the same time, love labors and rests in the beloved. See? This has nothing to do with what people call fatalism. This is not saying, well, it is what it is, forget it. It's just we got to live out this whole thing. It is instead a living trust that everything in our lives from now on is Baba, is from Baba, for Baba, in Baba. We are never separated from the Divine Beloved, according to Baba. So it's a trust. And it's, if we remember Him, it's, as Norina liked to talk about, getting in tune with Baba's rhythm, it's what it is. The happy life with Baba is not the pain-free life. Is not the life of being a nice person and having nice things and sort of Baba's there on the wall. It's not the life of doing right things and hoping for the best. No, the happy life with Baba. Baba meant by happiness the life where whatever happens, whatever you meet in the world, you have that sense of joy that this is part of your growth in Baba. Because you're convinced and convicted in your heart that Baba is now your life. And this realization of yourself is your true job now in your life. It's all you're here for. The rest is just to serve that. It's risky, of course, a little bit. And Baba says, Phyllis expressed it earlier today, it's something to commit yourself to this. Because it's kind of a free fall in a way. You're going to have to face so much that you don't want to face. None of us want to face things about ourselves that we've pushed way down. But to say, Baba, I give you my life, is to say, now let my ego be worked out for the last time, finished. And He'll do it. But there's nowhere to fall, finally, as risky as this may sound, there's nowhere to fall but in the arms of God, in the arms of the Beloved. Because that's all there is. See? That's why Baba reminded us over and over again, God alone is real. There's nowhere to fall but in the arms of God. The worst that could happen is you would end up in His arms. It's the worst. And that's good. Baba says, the best course for my lover is to remember me wholeheartedly as much as he can, and to remain happy. So try to love me by remembering me, and leave the rest to me. Try to love me by remembering me, and leave the rest to me. Again, that doesn't mean nothing happens. It means we don't work. It simply means remember me and then be happy in what I give you to do. Trust my timing, Baba says. Trust that I know who you are, I know all of your lives, I know exactly what to work out and when. That's what I think he's saying here. For me, remembrance has been the key to beginning to integrate some things in my life, and beginning to develop a poise. Because for Baba, if there are two words that come to mind when we think about spirituality in Meher Baba, it would be, to me, integration and poise. Because for Baba, spirituality is in its essence poise. And this is really what remembrance is working toward, what Baba is working toward, is this detachment, whether he gives you a lovely day and a wonderful picnic or he gives you a terrible time, is to be happy in both situations equally the same. That finally is spirituality for Baba. I want to give an example. I think it will communicate what I'm saying about integration a little bit, because everybody has their own personal examples. This is a recent example for me. I have always had a great problem with, I shouldn't put it that way, I've had a relationship with the Christian church. And and all my life. It's, as they say in India, it's my portion. You know? And it's not been easy, relationship. I can't get out of it. I have to work through it. But the one hard part about it for me has been a certain group within the church that is convinced, you see, that there's only one way. And this fundamentalist movement that we encounter now everywhere has always really ticked me off. It's real hard. And I used to really get upset because in my work, I have to work with people all the time from various Christian backgrounds, and there are a number of people who feel this way, who feel I do the work of the devil, I'm going to be condemned to eternal fire and so forth. And they're very convinced, you see, that they have the truth and I don't and so forth. So this always bothered me deeply. And there's a man on campus, a professor, who feels this way. And one day, and we barely talked, because I would hear he'd say terrible things about what I was doing to the students and so forth. So naturally, we barely had a relationship at all. I didn't go out of my way to get in his way or talk to him, so we just didn't talk. Not a very good solution, but it was nice. I didn't have to deal with him. One day, he comes to my office for the first time and sits down and says, in essence, he says, there's a long diatribe, but he's summing up, he says, everything you do here is just the opposite of the gospel. There's no religious life on this campus, thanks largely to you. And, you know, the students are doing this and that, and you're encouraging it and so forth. You're not teaching the truth. I don't know, something in me snapped at that point. I got really upset. But after a number of years, you see, of really having this problem over and over again, something happened in that moment, and it occurred to me, in the heart, not up here, it occurred to me, this is time to deal with this. I feel it must be from Baba. I just felt that. But I couldn't say anything. I was so upset, so angry. So I just sat there and I said Baba's name. All I could do, it's the last resort. I just said Baba's name. It was a wonderful meditation. He went on and on and on, and I just, sitting there. And it was wonderful meditation. I really felt so happy, you see. And at the end, he was starting to speak differently himself. Because he couldn't get me angry. And that was the last thing he expected. So then he began to ask me questions. Well, I've heard such and such, but maybe I should just ask you. It's the first time he'd ever asked. So then I was able to tell him, and Baba says don't compromise on a spiritual point. You can compromise on everything else. It's good. Give in. Why not? Give in to people. Who cares? Their opinions, whether it should be Reagan or Mondale or... give in, state your case. But the way I get it from Baba is, what difference? Finally doesn't make... But on a spiritual point, you don't compromise. And I wasn't going to say to him anything that I really didn't feel in my heart. But at the same time, if I really was honest, I would realize that we had common ground. there is common ground there. And to find that common ground is service. It is part of what Baba means by loving others. It doesn't matter if he never understands all that you think or believe, or if he ever accepts all. It only matters if you try to find that common ground where you both can meet in harmony and love. So while saying what I believed, I also tried to hear what he said, and to hear the truth in what he said. And there was truth in what he said, even about my work. There's always truth there. If you listen closely, there's something in that 35 or 40-minute diatribe that's true. I wasn't doing a perfect job. I wasn't the greatest campus minister that ever came along. There were weaknesses in my work, and he saw some of them. And when I started to remember Baba, I began to hear them in what he said. And then, still thinking of Baba, I simply said, yeah, you're right about this, this, and this. About this, I feel differently. And probably we will, for a long time, feel differently about certain things. Well, I tell you the story not because I think I'm saying it's an exception in my life to work this way. It's I'd like to do more of this remembrance of Baba, because the love that we have for each other now, this fellow and I, is genuine, because it's based on a genuine understanding of our positions, and also that we do share certain things in common. And now he has volunteered to do the music at our weekly services that I do. I let him speak one week. Why not? He has something to say. And he didn't use it as an opportunity to rant and rave. He tried to express his love for Christ in that time he had. And it was very touching. And I genuinely was moved. And now, when we have the sharing of the peace at the end of our services, we embrace each other and we mean it. Yeah. Other things will flare up between us, but we found that common ground. And I guess what I'm saying here is that I feel that when something bothers us over and over again, it's one of the clues that it's something in here we need to deal with. I feel differently now about fundamentalist Christians. I disagree. I'm concerned about many of the things that are going on. But it's not a personal issue. Because you see, I have found the fundamentalist Christian in my heart. And I'm now dealing with him. And I'm stopping putting him out here. That's what was scaring me. What was scaring me is that I thought, there I am. That's not what I said, but that's really down here what was bothering me. Am I like that? Could I be like that? Am I narrow and dogmatic? Self-righteous sometimes? Yeah. Do I feel I have the truth and others don't? Is that how I come across? And he brought all that up. He helped this man. And once it came up and was dealt with and faced and admitted to, so what? Yeah, I've been self-righteous. Then it doesn't have a power anymore. It's just there and can be integrated and finished. It has no power. And perhaps then I'll be a little less of those things and more listening to others. What difference does it make? See, if he feels differently. This is just a personal example. Everyone has examples in their lives, but it's an example of the integration that comes from remembrance of Baba. And every one of you probably could tell a similar story about how Baba has brought this about. But it is the opposite of pushing down and forgetting and simply seeing all the terrible things out here. It's the opposite of that. It's really, in all the things we encounter in our lives out here, partly at least, using these things as reminders of what we need to work on in here. They are gifts from Baba. See, that professor walking in my office was a lovely gift from Baba. I'm happy about it now. Even then I was, because I remembered Baba. So I know from this experience and from other experiences, as you know, that it's possible to be happy in any situation that Baba gives, and to use it as an opportunity for growth, which is what the point is here. So, Baba says, you see, if you remember me, you will begin to love others, to serve others. Naturally. You cannot remember, my feeling, you cannot remember Meher Baba without loving and serving other people. This isn't just self-absorption I'm talking about. It really isn't. If you begin to remember Baba, everybody in your life becomes an opportunity for love and service eventually. So, one last part of this that I want to share. That is that the painful side. Just to say it again, you see, we always I sometimes gloss over this painful side. Remembrance does have a painful side, no doubt about it. It isn't easy to hear that you're self-righteous. It isn't easy to face that you have these desires, or that you feel this, or that you are that, or that you even are capable of actions that you thought you were never capable. It's not easy. It's painful. And that's only one aspect of what comes up. There are many other things that come up. Rumi says, brother, to be a lover, you must have pain. Remembrance brings heightened awareness. And as you know, when you're more alert and more aware, sometimes it's much more painful than those who are sort of in a fog. Why do people in our time put themselves in a fog so much? Why do people spend a fortune to make their lives more comfortable? To go to people to help them to cope? Because it's painful in our world for people. And any kind of thing you can put in your mouth, you can drink or eat or whatever that will make you somehow numb to the pain. See, people are desperate for it. But it's not all the same pain. And that's important. I remember once being at a conference of Christian and Buddhist contemplatives. And that was quite an interesting experience. And part of that had Brother David Stendhal Rast, who's a great Benedictine, contemplative, great lover of God, and Ido Roshi, who's a Zen teacher, were talking together on the stage. And Ido Roshi was talking about sitting. That's really all he talks about, is sitting. That's all he does. He sits. But he's a very creative sitter. And someone in the audience raised their hand and said, Ido Roshi, she said, I want to know how you deal with pain. He said, you see, when I sit, it really hurts. It's painful. My knees hurt and everything. It's painful. You've been sitting a long time. How do you deal with the pain? How did you get rid of the pain? And he looked at her. He's Japanese, He looked at her. He looked at Brother David, because he genuinely didn't understand what she was saying. What is your question? Why? How do you get rid of pain? Pain? Oh, pain. It dawned on him. She's talking about pain. Pain. He said, I have been sitting 30 years. In the beginning, he said, I had pain. In the beginning, he said, I had pain. He said, it was painful pain. Painful pain. He said, now He said, 30 years later? And he smiled, chipper, you know. He says, I still have pain. But he said, it is joyful pain. Now it is joyful pain. What? It's still pain? Still pain. See? Life is what it is. No one escapes it. There would be no point in it. Sure, Baba could give us realization in a flash, but knowledge without experience is worthless, Baba says. Yeah, it is what it is, you know? Everyone's going to go through it. And in a certain degree, Buddha was right. It is suffering in that sense, in that fundamental, deepest sense. It is what it is. There's a T-shirt that I want to get in Washington that says something like, life is tough, then you die. Yeah. If we begin, you see, by realizing that it's true, and I should get it for Erich right now. You know, that's the first thing to be said. It is. It's tough. It is for you. It is for me. It is for the person out there, anywhere. But is it painful pain or is it joyful pain? And there's no doubt that in the spiritual life there's great joy in all the work we have to do. And it doesn't become easy. Baba says, if you put me first and if you remember me, everything will go well. Then he added, but not necessarily smoothly or easily. Just well. Yeah. Means it'll work out. It'll work out. It won't be easy or smooth. It'll work out. If we put Baba first, if we remember him, absolutely, it will work out. So, what can we say, you see, but that there is nothing at all to worry about. That's the final part to say. There is nothing at all to worry about. Because remembrance of the beloved is freedom. We are free. There's nothing to worry about. Everything that happens is part of our growth. This is from Baba. I don't know. I feel this, but Baba tells us. Everything that happens is part of our growth. And if we remember Baba, it's joyful growth. It's what we're here for. It's all we're here for. There isn't anything else. You know? What job we have, what person we're related to, what this, what that, is all to serve that. So what difference? If it's X, Y, or Z, is whatever is appropriate to work out whatever it is. So there's nothing to get too serious about or worry about. That's why Baba stressed, do not worry. It's nothing to worry. He didn't mean it flippantly. He meant it in the deepest sense. There isn't anything at all to worry about. It all works out. If you remember him. He says this, and I like this very much. It is in God's plan to awaken everyone from the dream of creation. It is in God's plan to awaken everyone from the dream of creation and make him live in God and experience God's infinite bliss. The law of opposites operates unfailingly to stage the so-called good and bad times. And in His compassion, God leads everyone and everything towards Himself, who is beyond good and bad. So, there is really nothing to worry about. Baba concludes. There is nothing really to worry about. Everything works out. So my hope in my life with Baba is really one thing, and it's the same that I would hope for each of us, is that when He takes that beautiful man form again, and He will, very soon, It's soon, 700 years relay to me. He will come again soon. What, 1, 2, 3 lifetimes of service for Him, of helping you get ready for His coming? That's what you have to look forward to, you know. You have some work between now and then to get ready for His coming. Why worry whether people establish religions or this or that in His name? They will. Let them do it. We will have a task of keeping that flame alive, not just in this life, in our next life perhaps, or next, if Baba wants us to keep coming back. And so what our job will be, you know, what will we be doing? Will we be wondering about whether we're going to have this job or get married or with this or that? Not much. Less and less will we be thinking about that. We'll do those things with this hand over here. But what we'll really be doing is getting ready for the Beloved to come into the world again. That's our job, because part of, He's got to have workers. He will be eliminating the ego. That He'll do. But He's also going to give us the additional job of getting the world ready for His coming. And soon He'll come again. Soon He'll come again. And we will be waiting. We, His lovers, will be waiting for Him to come. And we will know Him, whatever guise He takes. We will know who He is. Even if He says something we've never heard and looks like something we've never seen, we will know who He is because we prepared the way for Him to come. We will be in His close contact. See, that's our destiny. That's what we have to look forward to. What else is there? And what more could we ask for? But the one hope that I would have for us, each of us, is that finally when He does take that man form again, and we are ushered into His presence, He'll look at us, and He'll say, "How you've grown. How you've grown." I'd like to close with the prayer Baba gave in the new life that is good to pray this one, because Baba, it's a good one because it reminds of all these things. Baba had them pray it every day. Every day they had to say this. So if you join me in this silently, and I will speak it. I am not the body, I am not the mind, I am not this, I am not that. I am nothing but a living lie of that truth which is me. And unless the lie is dead, the truth cannot be. I am not the body, I am not the mind. I am not this, I am not that. I am nothing but a living lie of that truth that is me. And unless the lie is dead, the truth cannot be. I am not the body, I am not the mind. I am not this, I am not that. I am nothing but a living lie of that truth that is me. And unless the lie is dead, the truth cannot be. MeherBabaLibrary. Jai Baba. Thank you.